to bring the guard down.
Well, hello, everybody, and welcome again to another episode of the Bring Your Guard Down podcast. We first of all want to say thank you for joining us and listening to us. And, you can listen to this podcast if you're listening to it, obviously. So if you like what you hear and you want to be part of it going, forward, you can subscribe on iTunes, iHeart, YouTube, Spotify, all the different channels. We'd appreciate if you'd like it and subscribe. And today, Rocco's away. He's doing some training out of province, and we have Vito Rezza here today.
Hello. Hi, everybody.
Yeah.
Hi, how you doing?
How you doing, buddy?
Good, thanks.
Yeah, so Vito will be filling in for Rocco, and today we have a special guest. Chris T is here today. And,
special guest.
Come on.
What about special?
Yeah, everybody
Special needs.
I tell you, well, everybody that comes here for us is special. That's how we say it.
Definitely, especially this guy.
Yeah.
He's the best.
Yeah, so
Top
so we're just Chris, so how's it going with you?
Good, man.
Yeah.
Good. Was that the Leaf game last night?
Oh, you were at the game?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was pretty exciting, eh? Like 0-0. I don't know if you get
Caberlet
excited.
pulled it off near the end.
What was that? 0-0?
Yeah.
You're not being funny, are you? I don't follow
It was 1-0 at the end.
Yeah, they've overtime, but it was no goals in regulation.
regulation time.
Yeah, it was one of probably the worst game I've been to as far as excitement in a long time.
But
Yeah.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
What was the attendance like at Maple Leaf Gardens last night? Packed, right?
Yeah.
And the last time this team won a Stanley Cup was when?
67?
1967. Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, unfortunately, doesn't look like they're going to win one this year. They can't even beat the Montreal Canadiens, who stink, And I used to be a diehard Leaf fan. I had season tickets. I used to go to every game.
Wow.
Some good friends of mine played on the team at that time in 2001.
Wow.
And I, they just don't want to win. And they proved it to me. What they did to my buddy there. He used to be good friends with Dmitry Yuskevich. He was assistant captain on the Leafs. And then he was injured. He had a blood clot behind his leg. And, he said, I don't care. I'll even sign whatever waiver in case I die, whatever. He wanted to play. And they just basically, they didn't want to win. And so they forced him to go to Florida that year, and that's when I sold my season tickets. As I said, this team doesn't deserve any more of my money. Anyway, so that's the Leafs. They used to be my favorite team. Now there's only one team above them in the basement.
Right.
I used to hate the Montreal, but now Montreal's a second. The first hate is Toronto. Okay. So I can't watch those guys. I just can't watch that team.
So your conversion
I went from first to last.
Took place because of the way
he treated I had an inside information. Of course. He was willing to do whatever it takes to win. Sacrifice his body, his life. He was willing to put it all on the line.
Get it.
And they said, nah. We're going to take Shvela over you, Yuskevich. Wow. And that's when I said, F you, Toronto. No more money.
That sounds like insurance problem there.
Well, it doesn't matter if you sign a
risk
waiver,
management
indemnity. I'm not. I'll play no matter what happens to me. You're not responsible.
Well, if he's consenting to it,
right? And they said no. So it just goes to show, right? Everything is driven by money, right, Chris?
Everything is money.
Everything is money. Yeah. So the Leaf game was good. So what's new in your life? Like what's
not much. Lots of boxing. Tripolitis.
You got tripolitis? Yeah, we're going to do a show.
Suffered from tripolitis.
Yeah, we're going to do a show on tripolitis. That's a disease parents have.
Right.
Their kids are playing hockey. And there's certain
Play AAA?
Yeah, tripolitis.
Tripolitis.
I understand.
If you wake up in the middle of the night thinking about hockey, your kid's 12-year-old hockey, you got tripolitis.
Okay.
If you put 50,000 kilometers on your car in 1 year,
right,
you got tripolitis.
You got tripolitis.
You know what I mean?
But if I can say, as far as from what I've gathered, with Tony and with you, Chris, I mean, I know you guys relatively well. I don't think the argument of living vicariously through your children is the case here with either you, Tony, or with you, Chris, definitely. Because I don't think you guys do. Triple-itis is something you'd like to see for your kids, I think, because your kids want to play triple-A.
Yeah, no,
Is that
dude,
true?
it's really bad. Like, it's a really bad parental disease. It doesn't affect children. It only affects parents of children. And
But is it safe to say? Is it honest enough to say that you guys don't suffer?
Oh,
from this,
I don't know. I
this
don't know. I
vicarious
can't.
disease?
I will have to.
No, but you're an honest guy, so you're going to tell me.
I'm the guy that found the disease. I found.
Oh, yeah.
About 20 years ago.
Okay.
I came across and I started analyzing the symptoms of triple-itis.
Triple-itis. Okay.
And then I go that's bad. And so I coined the phrase triple-itis.
Okay.
About 20 years ago. And then I've been compiling lists of symptoms from then on. And every year there's something new, But kids, some of the symptoms, like I said, if you wake up in the middle of the night thinking about hockey, if you put thousands of kilometers driving to
car,
rinks,
that's two.
Yeah. If you've go online and read these chat boards anonymously.
Oh, right, bro. That's true.
That's just a waste of time.
I don't know. If you ever sat in an arena and blamed the coach for that's a triple-A. Or have you ever called out a player that you don't think is good enough, or you know what I mean, on your team or another player team,
How about left with a minute left in the game, pissed off with your kid for his effort?
Yeah.
Is that triple-itis?
Triple-itis is more, I guess that's more psychosis, not really triple-itis. If you're that degenerate that you leave, you leave because your kid,
How about yelling at the coach for not playing your kid enough? Is that part of triple-itis?
Of course. That's, I had a parent that used to pull his kids off the bench.
What?
During the middle of the game. That's a severe case of triple-itis.
Wow.
I don't like the ice time my kid's getting. So there's lots of symptoms, like lots of, things that, and then every year it goes up to U16. I'm doing all the talking. I don't know.
No, go ahead.
U16.
We need a vaccine.
There's no vaccine.
There's no vaccine
cure.
for
There's only
triple-itis?
cure. Here's the cure. At U16, or when the draft for the minor hockey is over, there's a bus. Like this weekend, the draft happened, right? And there's a bus that takes the parents with triple-itis, drives them to the Bloor Viaduct so they can fucking jump off the bridge. That's it. Yeah. Yeah. If you've ever sat in a hotel tournament drinking beer.
Oh boy.
At 9:00 in the morning, you got triple-itis. So those are the things, you know what I mean?
That's really
if
good.
If you ever wear the team's merchandise, if you collected more team's merchandise as a parent, you're wearing their jacket, the T-shirt, the hat, you got triple-itis.
Triple-itis.
So that's triple-itis. Anyway, so we could have a show just on minor hockey. In fact, I'm trying to get a guy here that is a friend of mine, been in minor hockey forever, and he's he'll tell you the truth about everything. Like he's not coaching anymore, obviously, because this is a different era now. It's all about money and kissing ass and buying spots. Like there's all this commotion and all of this controversy around minor hockey. It's incredible. But this guy, I'm going to try just to talk about minor hockey from when I started coaching 27 years ago to today, and how fucked up it is. So anyway, Chris, you've had an interesting journey in your life, right? Yeah. You've why don't you you had a buddy that used to go and do these, go on the city council of Toronto and raise shit, right? About certain issues.
He still does.
He still does it? Yeah.
Okay.
He goes all the time. Yeah. Yeah. He's been escorted out a few times from the police, actually.
Really?
Yeah, freedom of speech. There isn't any in the city of Toronto.
Right. You're not allowed to speak freely.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
We don't have freedom of speech in Canada. We have freedom of expression.
Oh, I
But
see.
legally, that only applies to printing presses. So.
Oh, right. So
what does that mean?
Yeah.
Well, in the U.S., you always hear, I have freedom of speech. I have freedom of speech. Well, and that's not written in law anywhere in Canada. Like if you look,
there's no First Amendment in Canada.
The Charter of Rights here in Canada is null and void.
That's why the U.S. is more freer, right? Because they have a republic, right? And they have a constitution there. Yeah.
So if the United States is a republic, what would you consider Canada to be?
Um, well, we've been hijacked by foreign corporation, right?
For sure.
In Canada.
Yeah.
So if you look up even if you look up Canada, the definition of the Corporation of Canada and where it's registered and everything else, it's registered in Washington, D.C.
It is.
Yeah, it's not a Canadian corporation. So to even go a step further, if you want to look where the shares are, where they trade for that corporation, it's in Luxembourg. Far away, so like no eyes are like paying attention, right?
You're talking about Luxembourg in Europe.
Yeah, that's where all the shares trade for that corporation.
Wow.
So anyways, it's registered. You can pull up the SEC filings, right? So the SEC filings, it shows like Pennsylvania Avenue, Washington, D.C., that's the head office.
Got it.
Mailing address is Ottawa, Ontario.
Only the mailing address.
So I'm ignorant to the whole. So what does that actually mean? Like, what do you mean the Corporation of Canada? Like, what does that actually mean? We're hijacked.
So Canada's basically like, if you look at the laws in Canada and the way it's administrated with the people and stuff, it's really like, it's all trust law. So it's just like trustee administration. They're administering a big trust here, right? For the people. And because this country operates in receivership and we use the US dollar as the world reserve, there's all these international rules of commerce and law that has to apply reciprocal to anyone that's part of the world reserve currency, right? Through the World Bank and IMF. So we have a foreign government operating as Canada. Like there's probably several Canadas that are registered over the years, but the one that we currently have where you elect a prime minister and everything else, you're more or less, for simpler terms, an employee of that corporation.
Okay.
So
and
are.
You get a benefit of electing, being part of the electorate.
Right. So you're talking about legitimate elections.
Yeah. So you hear people talk about charters, right? Well, charters are only for corporations.
Right.
Right. So if you have charter of rights, that must be because you're part of that corporation.
Okay.
So if you ever read Section 32 of the Charter of Rights, it states exactly who those rights apply to.
Right.
I don't know if you can pull it up or not, or you can post it later for anyone watching, but basically it says in Section 32, like in the simple way of putting it is, unless you're performing a function of government, this doesn't apply to you.
Okay. Understood.
Right?
Understood.
So you can imagine the amount of information and trickery or fuckery that goes on.
Oh boy.
In the whole world.
Right.
Because most people, even the things I just said, most people don't know any of that.
Right.
But
right.
But my
And
question.
this impacts you every single day.
So,
everything
but
you
how long has this been going on?
do. It's been going on for.
And how does it
long-
affect? How does it affect the average Joe? Like why would they give a shit about what you just said? Like what's they go around their lives and they live their life. They wake up, they go to work, they go home,
Pay their taxes.
They pay their taxes. Like,
And-
so what
Yeah.
benefit? Like what is it to
Well,
them?
there's different classes of people, really, right? So,
For
like,
sure.
if you got, let's say, you're filthy rich, you're not going to be encumbered by all these trustee laws that have given you a different status, standing, and capacity down here as, let's say, an employee. But even though technically he's not an employee, you're more of an agent of an agency. But let's just keep it simple so it's easy to understand. What they're going to do is they're going to form their own agency. So they're going to agree to certain laws and everything else, but they're going to form their own corporations, their own trusts, their own jurisdictions, so that they can play within the world of commerce on their own and still follow the international rules, but not necessarily the Government of Canada rules.
So these are rich people that are able to circumvent the system by creating.
It's all legal. It's all legal. Like everything they do is completely legal, right? So that if you look at a lot of the courts and stuff, like especially here in Canada, right? Like we were talking about how the US, there's a little bit more freedom and there's a little bit more rights there. And it's because it's a republic. Like you got to remember in the US, you can elect judges there. They have elections for judges. So the people.
Legitimate elections. They're not installations.
Yeah. Right?
Okay.
In Canada, we have no judges.
So they are
We have
installations.
justices that are appointed. So if you've watched in the last couple years, knowing that Justin was leaving and Carney was taking over. Like that's no secret. Everyone knew that was going to happen.
Right.
He's been the one running the show the whole time anyways.
Right. Carney,
yeah.
from behind the curtain.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
They put all their people in place long ago.
Gotcha.
Who's they?
So it'd be the Liberal Party and the council, the Privy
globalists
Council,
or the globalists.
Well, the Privy Council really makes all the decisions.
What's the Privy Council?
So if you look at the way the Canada Electric works, right? So in order for you to have a leader of, like, let's say the PC or Progressive Conservatives, whatever you want to call them in the Liberal Party, they have to be pre-approved. So Pierre doesn't get to be your choice that you get to elect unless the Privy Council says so.
Oh, boy.
That's like me and you all sitting on a Privy Council and saying, oh, yeah, here we go. We're going to have an election.
Right.
I'm going to put you for this party and you for this party. Are you guys all in agreement?
So is that
Perfect.
the same with
There you go.
Conservative Party?
Doesn't matter. It's all Canada. Yeah.
They all have.
Yeah. Yeah. And if you look at a lot of those guys there, a lot of them are if you look at the bloodlines, they're called like blue bloods, a lot of them, right? So they're tied into like old money, right?
Sure.
So
like the Laurentians, for example?
Yeah. And a lot of them are tied into like the banks and big insurance companies, and they're industrialists, right? Like big industrialists. So like they operate, most of the stuff that they have would be through a private trust.
Oh boy, this is getting really interesting.
So what happens is in this country is, you ever notice how these guys, like, they can steal billions and billions and billions of dollars and nothing ever happens?
Yes.
Yeah.
Because all their money is put into private trusts at some point. So it goes through all these corporations and eventually goes to a private trust in some jurisdiction that has laws that are favorable to them.
To them, of course.
Right?
So that probably just happened with the Bidens, right? Same stuff, all that money.
Oh, they're experts in that stuff.
Right.
Hillary Clinton.
Yeah.
That's why there's never
Barack
any accountability.
Obama. Right.
It's just
Steal
hilarious.
Billions of dollars, and they did no accountability.
Yeah. Unless you can find them on like a tax thing or something like along those lines, which is what they were going after Hunter Biden for. Like,
Right.
You know, because if you have a corporation registered in US and then you have money going through and you're not paying taxes, well, now they got you. That's why Biden gave him a pardon, right?
Right.
Because they knew. Oh,
Nice.
fuck, they got
The
him by
Biden
balls.
crime family, yeah.
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah. Because there's one interesting thing. Like if anyone must ever wanted to learn something, they should learn jurisdiction, because it's the most important thing to understand, because jurisdiction in the public and private are two different things. The public doesn't have authority over the private. So I'll give you an example. Do you remember years ago in England, they were building that Canary Wharf?
Yeah.
Yes.
Remember all that money and that whole thing
Yes.
or whatever?
Yes.
Remember they were going after them for the money and everything else?
No, they're Canadian guys.
Right.
Yeah.
And what did we all know who they are.
Yeah.
What did the justices say? Get the fuck out of here. We don't have jurisdiction over this. The public doesn't have jurisdiction over the private. We can't help you.
So who said that? Justice of Canada?
Yeah, so Canada actually tried to go after them for their share of the money that was taken, right?
They tried?
Oh, yeah, they tried. Yeah.
To no
go
avail.
after who? Go after the developers?
Yeah.
The Olympia Tile guys? What were their name?
'Cause they gave them money. Like, they gave them a lot of money to do that, like billions of dollars.
Billions, yeah.
They fleeced Canada for billions of dollars.
Yeah.
And it was all, you couldn't do anything to them.
Taxpayer
Because-
money.
Yeah.
Chris, maybe I
Boy.
just want to lift your mic up a bit.
I often
Well, that's not.
tilt-
It's
tilt-
not
tilt it
even.
up, yeah.
It's not even the judges too, right? You got to remember, a lot of these families, they're running like, they have like guys that they control that you elect and all the puppets and all these other things. But the main thing is it's the people that have been appointed to positions of power that are in control of these budgets. They're the ones making all the decisions.
right.
It's not necessarily the elected guys. Right?
Yeah.
Like if you look at in this country, I mean, there's one specific billionaire family. His mom ran the Crown, was a lieutenant governor.
Surprise, surprise.
The wife, who didn't take his last name because they don't want anyone to know they're
Of
married,
course not.
ran the Registrar General's office.
Oh boy.
And I mean, I can just go on. And then their nieces and nephews all sprinkled through the Crown and everything else. So not only do they control the surety for the persons, but they also control the law.
Oh boy.
And they're never elected. Nobody asked them questions.
So I still want to know, how does this impact the average Joe, and why should they be concerned? Because
here's why you should be concerned.
Because there is a lot of stuff you're saying, and the average person, probably like me, doesn't understand it.
Yeah.
So, but how does it impact me as a person and my family? And
yeah, so what happens is your fair share. So you go out and you earn money, or however you're doing that. Like if you went to a public school system, you're probably earning a living, right? So you have to use your time and your energy, and really that's your non-renewable resource that you can't get back, your time and your energy.
right,
Once that's gone, that's gone. That's the most valuable thing. Money is just a consequence of that, right? So most people want to protect their value. So there's ways and structures that you can set up for yourself and your family, like for different generations, so that way nobody can take that from you. The school system has been designed to teach you none of that,
right.
right? You go to school and they're teaching you how to be a worker, basically.
Right.
That's how that
So,
works, right?
so when you say take what away from you?
Well, anything that you spend time on or energy on should be yours, correct?
So you mean
One
the
would
money
think.
you make, or
Anything that you spend time and energy on. You
Okay.
own. Who owns your time and energy?
right?
You.
I do. Yeah.
Correct.
So how come someone else can come along and take something from you because of something you own that you created?
Like, give me an example.
Taxes,
Right.
Right.
right?
Well,
They
so-
tax you for earning it. They tax you for spending it. They
Yeah.
tax you for using it.
Right.
They tax you for moving it. They tax you for inheriting it. They taxed you for almost gifting it.
Right.
That's coming,
Yeah.
right? They taxed you for investing it. They
Right.
tax like everything you do.
Who gives them the authority to tax you, first of all? Where do they get
then
that
why
authority?
and then why do people comply so easily? Like, what? There's no recourse
Yeah.
for us.
Well, yeah, if things are structured properly at the beginning, which is what a lot of these private bankers and stuff do, like behind the scenes, there is no income left over at the end of the year that can be taxed. It's funny, if you go online and look up CRA, look for the definition of income.
Oh, right.
It doesn't exist. And it doesn't exist for a reason. Even though it's called the Income Tax Act. Trust me, I know. I've asked them for the definition lots of times. They won't give it to you because there is no definition for that word.
Okay, so what does that mean for the average Joe again?
Well, okay, so the law is an undefined term. Like if you were to say, what's the definition of law? There is no definition for it. It's an undefined term.
Wow.
So if you went into Black's dictionary, law, or any of these other legal books, there's no legal definition for it. So what happens is in contract law, when you're doing anything, there has to be a definition section because you can change the meaning of these words.
Ah,
right.
Right?
Yeah, in a contract, they'll say here the definitions.
Right. That's
and,
why there has to be that because you can change the meaning of the words. Like if I was to write a contract, I could really screw everyone over. I could change the definition of all these words and you guys would
right.
Exactly.
Whatever
English,
you,
you'd be like, holy shit, this is fucking
You
great.
def-
I'd be like laughing like a fucking dummy.
right. In a contract, you can define incomes, whatever you want.
long as I put it in there.
Fee, whatever you want. Right. Disclosure, whatever
Right.
you want.
Yeah. It's all in there, right? I can
Yeah.
change the stuff. So if you look at even like the acts and statutes in this country, which really only apply to government actors, if you read section 32 of the charter, it says right in there. However, a lot of us, without realizing it and knowing it, are actually acting in that status, in that capacity of a government worker. Because the government considers us agents of them.
right.
That's why everyone complains like, well, the government, they're supposed to be working for us. We all know the government doesn't work for you.
Correct.
Like everyone can feel that,
Right.
and see that.
Yeah,
But
for
yet
sure.
they'll still say the government works for us.
Right.
Right.
They belong in an insane asylum. So
Right.
obviously there's something else happening there,
Right.
right?
Right.
Like
But is it not? But wasn't it the government's primary mandate to instill this false political pedagogy in the minds of its populace, to actually believe that the government is working for us, we the people, as they say in the United States, we the people, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And then it boils down to what's the definition of we the people, right? Because you got to remember everything with government and banks, none of it is English. It's all legalese.
Right.
None of it is English. So you can it all has English characters. It all reads like English.
Sure.
You can read it and everything else, but you cannot interpret that unless you've learned how to interpret legalese. And then you have to go one step further. That's why you got a lot of lawyers that when they're going to, like, they go to law school and they learn how process works.
Right.
They don't necessarily study law. They study process, right? They study law, but mostly process. When they're done, they go into a specialty. So they'll go into taxes or estate planning or, HR law or whatever, the specialty.
Gotcha.
Then they got to understand what the meaning of the words are and how they're changed. And because it's overwhelming to understand all of it.
Right.
So if you look at all these acts and statutes through the country, you'll find some of the same words that they even use redefined like 8 or 9 times to mean different things. Depending on what acts and statutes you're reading.
Right.
So there's no way you could stay on top of all that stuff.
How?
Right. So why is there so much fuckery going on? Why is it written in such a language to make people think one thing, but really it's to accomplish something else?
Right.
Like, you know what I mean? Like, there's a lot of questions that you have to kind of ask yourself at that point, right?
Of course.
Why is this why are we making things more complicated than they have to be? Because there's a lot of other stuff happening that you don't know what you don't know.
Right.
Like,
So,
if you think about, go back like thousands of years, you had the Roman Empire, you had all these empires. Like, do you think these people just gave up all their wealth and power and just went away?
No.
Never did. They never did. They held on. All these kings and queens and the royal families and bloodlines, and all the occultists and all the, over the years, like, this is well documented. This isn't conspiracy theory. This is all factual, right? Based.
Right.
And a lot of it's based on science and religion and politics and psychology.
Right.
And being able to money change.
Right. But so is it fair to say then, Chris, as far as I know, if you trace it back, if you go all the way back to Egypt, the science that they referenced at that time, the science was actually seated in paganry and witchcraft and black magic. A lot of it was. So when people are throwing around this word science these days, because of what's happened this last 5 years, not to digress in any way, shape, or form, they don't understand, what science are you talking about? What is this science that you talk about? What is this law that you talk about?
Yeah. Like, if you look at the meaning of words, like, just here's an interesting one. Look at government. Right. So that's Latin. And basically in Latin, that's to control the mind. Right. So, like, if the government's your friend and they're working for you and they're doing what's best for you as the beneficiary of all the resources, this is what most people think is going on, right?
Right.
Then why are they trying to control your mind?
So
how do they do that, right?
Again, so from my perspective, from a layman's perspective, really, this can go back thousands of years till sort of, it really hasn't changed. It's just the masses working their butts off for the few, right? And that there's no difference.
It's all about extracting all the time and energy and funneling the wealth to the top.
To the top. That's what it is. So we're no different. So really, so why do we have elections then?
There's an old trust that's like that's a whole other.
But why do we? If it doesn't matter who's in power,
you have to keep up the illusion of people have a say,
right? But do people really believe that they have a say? Like,
people do. There's a lot of people that think
No, what I'm saying in terms of the government, do people really believe that if they? I don't know about what's going on in the U.S. Obviously, I'm not sure. We could talk about the Trump phenomenon, whether.
Yeah, I've had interactions with people in the lieutenant governor's office, attorney general, and a few other key guys, and asking questions and face-to-face meetings and stuff, and they laugh. They're like, "Chris, we don't care what you know, because no one will believe you."
Right.
And nobody is going to spend the time it takes to even understand any of this anyway.
Why with all this technology, why with all this sort of access to information, why it's still it's cloaked in mystery, this whole thing, and why people still are brainwashed. And is Trump part of that? Is Trump part of that thing in the U.S. or is that I
think in the last 5 years we've seen a major shift in that. I think people are starting to realize, like look at all the stuff like Robert Kennedy has been saying over the years.
Yeah.
Right.
Now it's starting to come out true, right? Like all these guys that were
all of it is.
Right.
Not some of it. All of it is.
Yeah. Yeah.
From the COVID to the vaccines to the fluoride to the food to the everything.
Yes.
Yeah. Right. Like so it's like, it's almost like, oh, maybe we should be listening more to the crazier people we think in the room that have been labels that have been attached to them rather than these guys that we're told to listen to. You know, like just look at this whole Trump thing. You know, he said something really. I tell you, the one reason I really like Trump, started paying attention to Trump, was I think it was in 2018. He was at a dinner and he had someone, a high priest from the Vatican. It was in New York. There was Hillary Clinton, and there was a whole bunch of other delegates there.
Satanists along with them. Just kidding.
Some of them may be. You never know.
Right.
So, and he brought up a story about this old priest that was there, and he looked at him, and he said, I couldn't believe he said on live TV, he says, remember when I used to come here and learn accounting from you? And the guy's like, yeah. He's like, I was a little boy, and you showed me both sides of the ledger.
Oh, boy.
So in accounting, you have the public ledger, right? Assets, liabilities, public.
Right.
But we both know that there's public and private.
Correct.
Private, no one knows about. And you've never been trained on it. You don't understand the meaning of the words. They're not going to teach you that stuff. They're teaching you only this. That's why if you look at Canada, when they do their taxes at the end of the year as a corporation, they only give you the consolidated financial statements.
Right.
They never give you the comprehensive. Because if the comprehensive statements, trust me, they won't give them to you because I've asked. If you were to look at the comprehensive statements, it would show a whole other story.
Right.
And they don't even want to open up their any eyeballs to or anything. And here's the thing, it's clouded in mystery because even a lot of lawyers that are smart and study, banking laws and all these other things, they don't get access to any of that information unless they signed a non-disclosure agreement.
Oh, boy.
And that'll wreck their whole life if they go against that. And the other thing is plausible deniability is built right into the system. Because if you're in court, and if any of you have ever been to court, if you settle, there's no case law.
Of course.
So all the people that have, like, let's say, sued the government because the government was claiming maybe they were an agent, maybe they weren't, maybe they were part of liened and part of a private trust or something, and they had to go to court and defend that. You wouldn't have access to any of that information because it's not on the public record, because it was all private and it was settled in the private. And the justices would have been like, hey, you got to shut this down right now.
So you're saying that if you sued the government for whatever reason, or the government sued you and they lost, you would never see that as case law. Is that what you're saying?
If it went to trial,
then
it's on the public record.
If it doesn't go to trial,
and
whether you win or lose,
it's never on the public record. So inquiring minds. So, like, I'll give you an example. I've been part of a law group for over 20 years, and every week they put like a case law in there. We break it apart. Okay, so what does this word mean? What is this? What did they argue? Should they have done this? Like, you just break it. It's just for fun, right? It's all a bunch of geeky guys like me that like this shit, right?
Right.
And they're really smart, these guys. We've been doing that for years. But that's only the ones where the judge concluded something. Both parties had to force an agreement because the judge made it. Now there's case law. Those are the only ones you can read.
Right.
Of course.
So this sort of structure, which is, I kind of believe it's thousands of years old, like you're talking about. Is this nothing new? Just that we just
all the royal bloodlines. This is all their structure.
It's all generational, right? We just come and go, and they come and go as well, but they maintain sort of the. It's not even structure.
It's not even they don't want to own anything. They want to control.
Right.
It's all about control.
But to what end? Like,
Well,
what's the end game? Like obviously,
I think we're starting to see it now. Like
What-
look at Western society in the last 40 years, 50 years. I mean, they've industrialized, they've built lots of infrastructure. I mean, they built like some of the best countries you can go to, right? Predominantly, mostly Christian, right?
mm-hmm.
So what's happened is with their religious background, their values and ethics that they, espouse, they believe that, they should share, and they're tolerant and they're progressive, and they open up their arms and let people move to their countries, right? But there's other religions and other groups of people that live in different countries that don't necessarily share those same values, right?
Correct.
So it's safe to say that those countries are a lot easier to control.
Right.
Look at the Gaddafis. Look
Yeah,
at
yeah.
Sure.
they're all easier to control. Where the Christians in some of these industrial Western nations and European nations, they demand a lot more. They
Right.
want rights. They value freedom. They value
Right.
other things, right? So what's happened in the last 5 or 10 years? They've been flooded by people from countries that don't necessarily value the same things they do.
Agreed.
Right.
How easy is it to change that society now when it comes to for your safety or voting or whatever the case may be,
Right.
when you brought in all the people
That
that
are not
are
accustomed to that.
accustomed to that? Yeah.
Right. And
So their strategy is bring them in. This is why I guess they let 11 or 12 million people in, and so that they can influence what, so that they can
It's all about control. So
control the population to again.
like if they go with this digital ID or this digital currency, we're screwed. Because
So-
what will happen is
So right, and I believe that. So go
I
ahead.
think
What will happen?
if you look at China, right? China's with their social credit system and the cameras and everything all over the place. I mean, if you do anything, mildly criminal there, they're going to get you. They're going to find you, right? Everything's kind of attached, right?
Right.
Like your livelihood, your credit scores, everything. They're going to get you, and you're going to be in big trouble. So you don't have the freedom. You can't even say certain things about the government without them coming to.
there's not even a court of law for that. They just it's a firing squad.
Yeah, right.
Right.
Like it's a lot different, right? So if that was to come here, who do you trust? The government hasn't acted like your friend to begin with for all these years.
Great point.
And has been now they're in a position to say what words you can use and what words you can't use.
Great
Who
point.
determines what words I can use?
Excellent.
You don't. Who are you to tell me what words I can use?
True.
You don't have authority over me.
Mhm.
We don't have a contract together. And if we do, where's the consideration for that contract?
Right.
Last time I checked, you worked for me.
Right.
Right. So I agree that if we have digital ID,
But these are
digital
all
currency-
arguments that people should be, not arguments, these are all things that people need to start asking themselves.
Well,
like,
of
what
course.
the hell's
Right.
really,
Right.
why is this happening like the way it's happening?
Yeah, and so again, I pointed like either people are really, really stupid, or
I think people
or
are
just-
so overwhelmed.
there's something at the root of it that would allow you to accept, someone telling you what words you can't use, where you can spend your money. They can drive a car that they can turn off the ability for you to move at a switch so you can't charge your car, or whatever the control is,
Yeah.
But again, I always look at it to what end? Like, is it to create a population elimination? Is it about
It's funny you said that, because like if you go back, like take Bill Gates for example, his mom and dad, they were eugenists. Do you know what a
Mhm.
eugenist
Yeah,
of
is?
course,
of
Yeah,
course.
right. So they're big on population control. They wrote books on it. And
Yeah.
like, they did studies and they were pushing like
Back
lowering-
then.
back then. So, but there's other families that don't necessarily have the same amount of power structure that don't feel the same way they do, right? So there's always been different factions that have different competing priorities and objectives, right? And I think that's kind of what you're seeing played out with this Trump thing, because you got a lot of people that like him, and then you got a people that don't like him. And the people that don't like him are the ones that want to take your freedoms. They're the ones that want to control the money supply.
Right. Great point. That's a very good point.
Right. So
because he's doing the exact opposite. He's auditing, he's exposing, he's sending the money back to the people. Like he's doing a lot of things that, quite frankly, we should be doing in our country.
Right.
And so why aren't we? Is it because
control?
So I get it, the control, but so this conservative leader, is he the Trump of Canada, or is he just another puppet?
They're all puppets.
Right. They're all puppets. I get it. But you know what I'm saying? Can he
it's the lesser of the evils at this point.
Right.
So
really, why wouldn't it make sense for Canada somehow to economically connect to the US? Like to nobody accepts our currency anywhere in the world, so it's useless.
We have this fake sense of nationalism, which is, I'm so blown away by the last few months with these cowards. So when COVID was happening, you have all these guys, do this, do what you're told, do this, blah, 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 blah. Mm-hmm. You weren't standing up for rights then, and you weren't being nationalistic then when this government was telling you to stay in your homes, wear a mask when you're having sex with your wife, and all this other stuff, crazy stuff.
Crazy.
Right? But now all of a sudden you're this big nationalist,
right?
Elbows Canada, up. Elbow, like I don't know where these people come from, but it's to your point is you were talking about lowering the IQ and the ability to think. I don't think they can think clearly. I think they would rather do what feels good rather than think things through.
But didn't the experience of COVID teach people anything?
I think now you
learn that the vaccine was a fraud, that the social distancing was a fraud, that the masks were a fraud, that everything was a fraud, and you still believe that this government how is that sending? I mean, I had experiences, sending the COVID police to my front door when I came back from a trip, or being harassed on the phone, and I just told them, go fuck yourself. Yeah. No. I could show a video of the police at my front door, not wearing a mask, not doing everything opposite.
Yeah.
They want me to do.
Yeah.
And I said, hypocrites. show me your, I said to him on the camera, like right at my front door, show me, you have a negative COVID test last 72 hours? Yeah. Show it to me. I don't have it. Get the fuck off my property now.
Yeah.
Right. And just people are so stupid. Like, I just can't even imagine putting something in your body that somebody tells you is okay, now to learn that you're going to be dead in 10 years.
But I don't think that, and what I agree with everything that's being said, but I have to say that people didn't get dumb because of 5 years ago. People were already dumb from 50 years ago. Mm-hmm. They already, when someone wakes up every day and has their life run by CP24, everything from their health to traffic to weather to food that you consume to alcohol. Wine is good, wine is no good, whiskey's good, this kind of stuff. And then you have social distance, but the liquor store was open. I was shoulder to shoulder with guys buying vodka. It's incredible. Everybody shut down everything, but Doug Ford's shop stayed open. So the elitists, whatever it is, it's never good.
You could go to we can talk about it now. You could go to Loblaws, but you couldn't go to the local grocer.
Correct.
Like, to me, you could go to Costco, but Walmart, but you can go to the local business to support it. So you essentially killed, and I was a victim of that.
Of course.
Killed small business.
Of course.
Killed it.
Yes.
Yeah.
So how did they manage to get and control that many people to believe?
Fear of dying, period. Fear of dying.
Yeah. So these same people we're talking about, that run, like the Vanguards and the Black Rocks and all that.
Sure.
Like, that's really what it boils down to. They're the agents for all this stuff. They use trauma-based psychology to control everybody.
Right.
That's why you can't turn on the news every day with seeing someone was stabbed, car accident,
fire.
It's always
murder.
A trauma-based
misery
because of what it does to you.
Absolutely.
Right? Like it scrambles your brain, and then you can't think clearly, and it really lowers your IQ. Like the more you watch that stuff, like the the dumber collectively you're going to
Right.
get over time.
Right. And then you get this mass formation that Mesmet talked about in Rape of the Mind, Juice Mirlu's book, right? It's just to a T the way it was executed.
Yep. And they've done lots of studies on that, lots of different studies
course.
to replicate and like show that that's actually the case.
Correct.
You look at like the central bankers, right? They have a huge vested interest to keep people silent.
Right.
I used to do work groups with Karen Hughes, who was the president of the World Bank. And she's a lawyer. She's really, really smart. She knows a lot about banking. And it's really interesting, some of the stuff she shared. I probably shouldn't even talk about some of the stuff, but she said that the intelligence agencies around the world worked very, very closely with them in order to keep certain messaging kind of like in line with what their objectives were.
The three-letter agencies you talk about.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And that's, I mean, you don't even need, that's easy to see, right?
Clearly,
that's being played out, right? Ask yourself this, anyone watching, if every country is in debt right now, national debt, every country is in major, major debt and you're paying taxes up the yin yang, who do you owe the money to?
Right.
Yeah, that's a great question. Who's the money? Like,
who do we owe it to? Yeah.
If
Who
the
do you owe
U.S.
it to?
trillions in debt, who do they owe that money to?
Oh, is that a conspiracy? We all owe money to nobody?
But who?
Obviously, we owe it to somebody.
What is the answer to that? Who does Canada owe its deficit to?
It's all tied in, right? So all that world reserve currency, because we like our money. This is like a difficult subject for people to grasp, but like our money is not backed by anything. It's our value in this country comes from our signature. So our domestic currency is your signature, and if you want proof of that, Section 57.1 of the Bills of Exchange Act. That's all you got to look at. And if anyone ever asks you, you just say 57.1 of the Bills of Exchange Act, explain it to me. And then they run the other way.
Right.
Your signature is what everyone wants. Anytime you go to do with anything with the government, what do they ask for?
Signature.
Why?
Because
I don't know.
Your signature in a court of law is proof of understanding.
correct.
And understanding is different than evidence. So you got to look at it like this, like there, you know how you have facts, you have evidence, and you have all these other things, right? In a court. Okay. But proof, the word proof always requires a signature.
So is that why, it's funny back, because I'm trying to put this back. So when you were flying back during COVID and you had to fill out the Arrive Canada, there's no way to opt out
Of the signature part?
of the signature part.
Yeah. So I always put
Yes.
by
You showed me that. Yeah.
signature.
Yeah.
So when you sign something, now you're not signing as it, you're signing for it.
Ah,
That's a huge distinction in law.
almost like a proxy.
Yes. I'll give you an example. Let's say you work for Coca-Cola
Okay.
and you work for Coca-Cola and you injure somebody as an employee of Coca-Cola. They're going to sue Coca-Cola,
Right.
right? Coca-Cola is liable for you because you're their employee. If you use your person for flying, banking, anything government related, if you sign as it, well, then you must be liable. If you're signing for it, well, maybe that's an agency relationship as an employer agent.
So when you
Who would be surety then?
So when you sign something,
They would.
buy, what does that actually do? Like you're saying, you say buy, and then
You're
you
qualifying your signature. So at the end of the day, if you're ever in court or anything like that, you could say, whoa. You don't have proof of anything here. You may have some evidence, but we have a whole bunch of conjecture around that evidence, right?
Right.
So now you have to hear me out, because without understanding, there's no proceeding. You cannot proceed in court unless there's understanding. That's why they ask, do you understand? Do you understand? They ask you a million fucking times in court. Do you understand? Do you understand?
and if you say no,
But they always ask, do you understand? What if you respond and say, I overstand?
Well, that's, yeah.
It's just a play on the words, right?
Yeah. But you don't even have to. You can just say, no, I don't understand. I have some questions. Okay, what are your questions? And then you can start asking, well, you see that how I signed this, right? I signed for it, not as it. So my only question to this court is the party with surety here today? That's all I care about. I just want to know who is the party of surety? Who is the liable person here? Who is going to be paying? Because everything legal is accounting and surety. That's it. I could teach anyone a 4-year law degree in like a month. Everything in legal equals accounting and surety. Accounting, where the money went, accounting,
Gotcha.
blah, blah, blah.
Gotcha.
Who's liable? That's what surety means.
Who's liable?
Who's paying?
Correct. Who's paying?
That's it. Legal, accounting, and surety. That's all it is. So if your signature's on something and you understand you didn't qualify it, you're liable.
Right. So by signing by doesn't make you liable. Is that what you're saying?
Well, if you have to go into court and you have to discuss things and you want to start asking some uncomfortable situations, you have proof and evidence
Right.
that you've qualified your signature, right? Like when you went and did your driver's license and everything else, did you read and look up the meaning of all those words under the Highway Traffic Act?
No.
Of course not. Who does?
Right. But you signed saying you understand it?
Right.
Of course.
Holy fuck. Like, and you already know that's not English. It's legalese.
Right.
So did you look up the meaning of any of those words? Like the word you, Y-O-U? You know, we would use that as singular. Like I refer to you as you.
Correct.
But you in legal sense is you and your person. It's
Right.
plural. That's the agency relationship, right? You're an agent of that agency.
Right. So even with the silliness of pronouns these days, do they still tie you into the same legal aspect?
Well, that's interesting. Like when we were coming out with all that, I was looking at all the wording, and they're like so sneaky. These guys, they had to rewrite some of that stuff.
They did,
we were
right?
laughing. Oh yeah, we were sending. Like, here's the thing with government. Like, for years, me and the group we were part of, like, because we were studying law and we were looking at definitions, and I had so many moments where I got, I'm like, what the fuck? I'm a fucking retard. How did I not catch that? Like,
Right,
you know,
right.
like, you know how many moments I had like that?
I'll bet.
You feel, you go to bed at night, you're like, how the fuck am I this retarded? You know, like,
Wow.
and then you start learning, right? And then now I'm
course.
pissed off, right? When I get pissed off, I want to know.
Right.
So like, it
course.
kept fueling me, right?
Of course.
So we started sending lots of registered mail, asking all kinds of questions, right? No one ever answers.
Nobody.
No, never.
Wow.
But who are you sending them to?
To the deputies.
Okay.
Yeah, all the deputy. So the deputy attorney general, deputy registrar general. The registrar general, like, they must hear my name down there and be like,
Right.
fucking shaking.
They
Like,
must-
they don't want to even hear my name down there.
Of
like,
course
anymore.
not.
Like,
I guess.
they know me. They all know me in that office. Like, guaranteed.
I guess.
Because they send me back so they did send me a letter one time. I should have brought it. Actually, it was great. So they send me like a basically it was just a bunch of bullshit like I didn't even ask for. So then I told them that for $150 an hour, I would teach them how to read and interpret information just based on the common use of the language rather than the legalese that they're using and that I understand. And they didn't like that too much. But so one lady calls me back saying, well, you know, we're not authorized to answer any of these questions. I said, well, that's an interesting thing to say to me, because if you're a public servant, that means you work for me because I'm paying you technically. And if I hired a maid to clean my house and I told her, clean that goddamn fridge, she didn't clean it, I'd fucking fire her ass. Or I'd berate her. Something, because I'm the one paying. So how come these rules don't apply to you? Mm-hmm. And who is it that you need authority from? She's like, well, you should go to the Attorney General's office. I said, oh, thank you. I had them actually tell me this is great. And have it all on tape because I record all my conversations with government. So then I called the Attorney General's office. Now they're pissed off because I have them backed into a corner, right? They told me to go to you, and I have proof of it, evidence of it, right? Audio. And it's just like chasing your tail. So anyways, what ends up happening is they go on to their acts and statutes and start changing things. So it's more correct.
Right, on the fly.
Because their errors have been found and pointed out to them,
but
they don't want to expose to the people that are in the know.
Right.
Sure.
So, but isn't that, so you're kind of, you're defeating the purpose of knowledge, because you're giving them the power to change.
Well, what you're doing too is if there's ever some sort of issue, and I mean, let's take Andrew Tate for example, right?
Right.
Okay, so most people would agree there's been a war on masculinity for the last 5 years. Right?
Emasculation is all over the place.
Right?
Yeah.
Because if you want to bring in control, which is what we talked about, that's like Marxism and
Sure.
communism and everything else. So you can't have masculinity as part of that formula.
Correct.
That won't work, right?
That's correct.
So they've been attacking masculinity. So what did they do for Andrew Tate? All they did was put labels on him and looked for anything criminal that they could get him with. So they didn't find a crime. They found a person and looked for the crime.
Oh, wow.
So if you've already have all these questions, proof and evidence witnessed by a notary, an officer of the court, witnessed by the postmaster general, right? Because you're registering mailing it,
Right.
you have a signature.
Yep.
You have evidence that you tried to understand. No one would tell you anything. So you're telling me now you want to come after me for something that I asked you in advance for a non-victimless crime? This is what you're trying to do here now? Wow. Let's discuss that.
Right.
So,
Yeah. Pretty messed up. So,
But
well-
it's all about intent when you go to court, right?
of course.
And there's all kinds of victimless shit that they can come after you for, right?
Of course.
So if they want to shut someone down, they just look for the person and they look for any crime that they can get.
right.
Not necessarily
Yeah.
anything, right?
Right.
But if you've been asking all these questions and trying to figure out because you want to be legal, you want to be lawful, you don't want to injure anyone, you've been asking all these questions because you want to be the best guy
Yeah.
you can be.
And what difference does that make, really, in the end? You know?
Without understanding, there can be no proceeding in court.
Yeah.
That's
Right.
how the court system
Yeah.
works. Right. And
Yeah.
your intent was always
But
to be legal and lawful, and you can prove
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. So, and you admit to understanding by either admitting to it, by verbally, yes, I understand, or by signing something to say, I understand.
Well, a lot of
But-
people verbally say it because they ask you in court.
Right.
Do you
But so then how do you
understand why
get,
you're here?
yeah. You get around, how do you get around a document that they won't issue to you unless you say you understand?
I never ask questions that I don't already know the answer to.
Of course.
Never. I never do that because none of this is hidden. Everything I say, you can go verify.
Right. But my question is, if I have to sign for a driver's license, I have to agree to the terms and conditions of the Highway Traffic Act and blah, blah, blah.
Yep.
I have no other option. If I want my license, that's it.
Yep.
You're stuck. So
Qualify your signature.
by putting by,
Yeah, just qualify. You want to make sure that they understand that your position is not bitch. It's as an agent.
right.
And as an agent, we all know who surety is under that is.
So
It's the corporation that they want to assume that you're involved with or working for or performing a function of government as.
why is
'Cause
my
that's the definition of highway. by the way.
why right?
What is it? What is it?
Highways engaging in commerce for the government.
Oh, boy.
Why is my name and my passport and my driver's license always in capital letters?
That's a proper noun. So that's the person, right? That's not a living thing. That's the agency.
So explain that. So people watching, check your passport, your government ID.
Everything's in all capital.
all capital letters.
It's
Why?
not legal if it's not in capital letters.
So why is that? Why is it done? Why?
So when you were in public school, how did they teach you to sign your name and write your name?
First
Uppercase,
le-
lowercase?
Up, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
First letters up.
And legalese, uppercase, lowercase. Now, a lot of this has been hidden and you have to go back to the 40s to actually find some of this and some of their old stuff. That's actually uppercase, lowercase is the agent. Lowercase is the man, the living. And uppercase, which is a proper noun, and you're not a noun, right? Person, place, or thing. That's the agency. So that's the fiction that was given to you to operate under the receivership rules that the central banks have set up for you.
Right.
And they control the media, which is the trauma-based.
Yeah. So again,
Right.
so the driver's license and your passport and any other, your health card, it's all capital letters. And it's because, again, so explain it to me again.
It's their property. You're using their property as an agent, right? So think about it. If
So if I sign, when I'm signing a document, do I put capital letters as my signature? It doesn't matter? Or?
no. You don't have to get involved and be an expert on their crap. You know what I mean? Just
Right.
qualify your signature and that's it. See, at the end of the day, I have no
So,
problem.
sorry, how do you qualify signature?
Just by,
colon.
semicolon, and sign. Yeah.
That's
Some
it.
people put per, like lawyers always put by or per. You never know.
What if there's something you add after, like something like
Yeah, you can get into some codes and stuff.
like there was something.
There's a UCC code you can put
No,
in
but
there.
even some words, non-census or something like that, or
There's all kinds
there
of
was a term, I think,
non-assumption.
non-assumption.
Yeah.
What does that do when you say non-assumption
So
next to your signature?
yeah, so non-assumption means you're not operating on any assumptions or presumptions, and you're qualifying your signature until those have been answered. Technically,
Right.
you know, it's kind of like a wishy-washy explanation, but that's really what it is.
So let's say they see this on the government side. They see someone sign
These
it
government
like that.
people, they have no idea.
No, but let's
They're
say
just
they,
like, what the hell, is this his middle name, last name,
Yeah.
family name?
Right.
They don't fucking, they have no
Not
clue.
a sunset family name. Yeah.
They
well,
don't know.
I did that many times.
Oh, I know. I
Back.
told you to do
You told me to
it.
do that. And once the customs officer says, "Oh, is that your middle?" It's exactly that. And the customs,
know.
is that your middle name? What is non-assumption? I said, no, just it
Yeah.
is what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's some interesting guys that have gone into court and have made some killer arguments in court. Usually gets canceled right away. Then they get brought back in. When they get brought back in, there's usually 2 RCMP guys, a closed door session, and no one is allowed in the gallery except for you and the judge and whoever else is in there. And I know 100% this happens
So why are they doing that?
because they don't want anyone to hear some of the things that are being said.
Right.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
can't you record it and then release it?
Yeah, you can. Yeah.
Is that a crime?
Well, they'll try to stop you. They say you have to file notice with them. They've made all those changes in the last little bit. So I did do that once when I was embattled with an insurance company. And as soon as I opened my mouth and asked about 3 or 4 questions, the lawyer, honestly, like for the insurance company, he just didn't even know. I could tell by the look on his face. Right. He was looking at me like
Discovery, right?
He was looking at me like I was crazy. The justice was like, he goes, "Can I have a word with you?" I said, "Sure." And I walked up and he's like, "What do you do for a living?" First question out of his mouth. I said,
Really?
"Do I have to be quiet? Do I have to answer that question?" He goes, "No." And then he goes, "Okay, go sit down." I went and sat down and he looks at the justice and says, "You better fix this right now." And that was it.
Wow. So yeah, go ahead.
That's scary. So when you go into a court of law,
It depends. That was a good justice who maybe
Right.
the other guy thinks some asshole doesn't want to play by the rules, but that's not the case with me.
right?
Like we have a society we're trying to run.
Correct.
And these rules are in place for a reason. And if the intent is to make it a better place and safe and no one gets hurt, then I'm okay with that.
Right.
But that's not what's happening anymore.
Right. Understood.
Like no one's going to convince me that when you're working 180 days a year to go fund the government and other bullshit, and you're only keeping the rest, you have failed miserably as a government that's responsible for safeguarding my stuff,
Correct.
right?
Yes.
And these are the terms that people need to start thinking in, right?
Correct.
And you asked me earlier if I like Pierre Polyev. No, I don't. Like I think he's the best out of all the choices, but I've sent him numerous letters to his office, registered mail. And I said to him, "How come you don't talk about the bail-in provisions? How come you don't talk about this? How come you don't talk about that? How come you don't talk about Carney's number one advisor talking about 2030 and where the population should be in this country? How come you're not talking about any of those issues?"
Right. And his response?
There's no response.
None.
So then, so then I go online, I comment, and I send letters, I send emails. They just ignore it. They just ignore it.
So he's like one of my good dear friends, my childhood friends, always says about regarding politicians. He said Pierre Polyev is the best evil that we have.
Yeah.
Would that be a correct assumption?
I think that's what you're doing anytime you vote, right? You're taking, what do you vote for? You're voting for the person that you least hate the most. That's what everyone does, right?
That's a great point.
Wow. I wonder if this sort of outlook, this sort of doom and gloom, kind of what I see, just sort of how things are and how it's messed up everything in society. If it's something that's been around for, hundreds and hundreds of years, or
it goes way back. Yeah. Like
but the thing is that there's never ever been an uprising, really. What is it going to take? Is it take aliens to come down on from
We'll give you an example in the last 20 years of two guys that did try to uprise. Gaddafi,
Right.
Saddam Hussein.
Right. And they took them both out. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's my point. My point is you can't win. Just like, I don't know what the Trump situation is going to be like globally, but
what I'm saying is, like, most people are comfortable with the way things are because they just don't know what the problem now is. You have like a whole bunch of people that have woken up and they know, they can feel that something's wrong. They just can't put their finger on it.
Or they don't know what to do about it.
And they don't know what to do about
That's
it.
That's the thing.
And the problem is now is our government leaders, they're working for, like really large corporations now, and the little guy has been forgotten about. Like they think we're going to take 10 grand more per family per year for carbon credits. And fuck, we don't even produce carbon here. We're the least producing carbon country.
We have 40 million people.
Right. Yeah. And we're the ones paying taxes. And then China, India, all these guys have exemptions, and they represent 60% of the world's population. Like, that doesn't even make any sense.
Oh boy. Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
So then what do they say? Oh, well, we'll give you $100 check every year.
We'll give you $100 back of 10,000.
You're going to take 10 grand and you can send me $100 and I'm going to be okay. But people are okay with it because they're not trained to think in this like bigger picture, like.
Right. I think, and this is just a matter of opinion, I mean, we'd have to sit down and have numerous conversations regarding existential living. Mm-hmm. Because this is really, really deeply rooted in every human being, and with the virtuous aspect of being human and all of the deficiencies of being human. Mm-hmm. And so this is a program that's been led for thousands of years, where the small minority, the 1.0001% of the people on the earth, governed the rest of the people on the earth. This is a problematic thing. First, you have to condition people, as you said earlier. Once you condition them, then it's very, very, very easy to them to accept what you think is comfort, what you think is free speech. Yeah. They don't have a clue of what either one of those things is. Those are just two prime examples. Mm-hmm. Or when are you full? When is your stomach empty? When is it? When have you had enough food? When are enough calories enough? Based on what science? Yeah. This is the whole thing. So there's even the medical profession, the pharmaceutical industry, to come in there like Trump. That's just the tip of the iceberg, as you said. If you start unpacking, cliche, but if you start unpacking 3,500 years worth, mm-hmm. and you go back and you start going back and you see, go back to the Brahmins. Go back to the Buddhists and the Hindu religions, the Bhagavad Gita. You have to talk about the Bible. You have to talk about all of these books, all of these things that have impacted humanity. Mm-hmm. And then you have to unpack the lies. And what is truth? Then you have to get into that whole conversation. So this thing can go on for days and years.
And the trouble is, you're only here for 80, 90 years.
Well, yeah, it's true. Yeah, but if you think about it, those 80 or 90 years could be really, really significant. When are you significant? When you think you're significant, or when someone else says that your work is of great significance? We had this conversation during the week, Tony and I. Mm-hmm. It's really, really fascinating at how we flip inside our minds. Psychologically, we are consistently flipping because we're not sure. And the unsuredness comes from the fact that the elites have done a great job, the people in power, to make us feel unsure all the time, to make us feel like we could never be successful. Yeah. And then they hit us with this new age thinking. Here's a book called The Secret. Yeah. Think positively and your whole life will be positive. Yeah. Then there's all this junk going on. The fact of the matter is, and you have to go right to the well. Yeah. This is just my opinion. Yeah. Once you get to the well and you touch the water, mm-hmm. you quickly realize that well water is always 18 degrees Celsius. If it's 40 degrees Celsius outside in the summer, that well water is 18 degrees. If you're in Siberia and it's minus 71 outside, the well water remains at 18 degrees Celsius. Mm-hmm. That's the truth. And this is what we have to get to. Everything that we consume, food-wise, metaphorically speaking, everything we consume has well water in it. Pop, well water. Scotch, well water. Toothpaste, well water. Food, well water. Animals, steak. It's got well water. It's got water in it. Mm-hmm. So then you got to get into that, unpack all that science, as they call it, the cliche. And then some people will eviscerate your argument because they don't want to hear it because they have what they think is newfound information based on a modern society. So now they can use words like conspiracy theorist. You're out of your mind.
Well, this is where the labels come in to discount your message.
Yes, yes.
What's really scary is the youth that I talk to. I don't see any passion for truth because I don't even see passion for learning or passion for exploration or creativity.
Mm-hmm. No,
neither do I.
I don't see it. I don't see. You know,
but you're instilling some of that in your son. You're instilling some of that.
Well, I do the best you can, but geez, right? It's not easy because
But it never was.
I'm competing forces, right?
Yeah,
right.
Well, it's the device. It's the device. Mm-hmm. It's the game. It's like
the quick dopamine.
It's all. It's like time. They're not like I don't. And I'm talking about our kids are younger, but even sort of kids that I know and that are late teens, early 20s, I call them kids because they are to me, but there's no way. Right. I just don't see the ingenuity, creativity, entrepreneurship, the idea, thinking, trying, exploring.
I think a lot of the major changes happened over the centuries, just based on books I've read, has always been with a small group of people anyways that started.
Excellent.
It's always been like, it's never been the whole populations come together. Like,
no,
because they use tactics like neuro-linguistic programming,
right,
neuroassociative conditioning. Those are like, if you go join the CIA,
social engineering,
Interpol, all that stuff,
right,
you learn all those techniques,
right?
Like in order to control, your assets and suspects, and whatever. Right?
Sure.
So I've read all those books. I understand all that stuff.
Of course.
But the point is it's weaponized against you.
Right.
Through the media. So there's been a lot of people coming out and ratting out, like in the US, because of all like CNN and all these other things, about the CIA having their plants inside all the media.
Right.
And now the budgets come out and they're showing, the CIA is actually funding this.
Mm-hmm.
This has all come out in the last year. So this is all starting to come out now. So these people that were saying this for years aren't sounding too crazy anymore.
Yeah,
exactly.
Well, that's, I guess, the good news.
The accounting is here.
Yeah,
like they can see the accounting, right?
Right.
Like, what's happening.
Right. But to add to your point, and I'm not sure if this is correct, that this could be an assumption on my part. I could be delirious. But the fact of the matter is, like Tony said earlier, maybe this is that one moment. Maybe this is the moment where it's just going to blow up. Maybe this is the time, the most expansive time in human history, where all of this has to come to the surface so all of us can see it.
I think that's what we're seeing now.
I hope so.
I really do, because if you look at, like, just take if you look at the budget for Canada, right? And the pie that they have,
yes.
And then they look at that big pie towards healthcare.
Right.
Our interest on our national debt is equivalent to that now.
What a shift.
Just the interest on the national debt is equivalent to that.
To the healthcare.
And who do we owe that to?
Right.
Who?
Who do we owe it to?
Well, why don't we just ask them to forgive all the debts around the world so all the people can thrive?
Great point.
How come that doesn't happen?
Great point.
Oh, they're going to set up a charity for what? To help kids in Africa?
Right.
Well, why don't you just help all the kids in every country?
Absolutely.
Correct.
Why isn't that happening? This is what I mean. So like, there's all this stuff that's keeping people busy and look over here while they're over here, and they do all this stuff.
Of
right?
course.
You brought up something about water. Do you know how water is like big time important when it comes to law?
Absolutely.
Because water is the law of banking, right?
Yes.
So look at the words, right?
Yes.
Currency, banks.
Right.
Right?
Right.
Everything's a ship. citizenship, township,
Ship.
everything is ship,
Right.
water, banks,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
A woman is pregnant. She goes in to see the doc.
The doc.
What
Correct.
happens when she's about to give birth?
Birth.
In her birth.
In her birth. Yes.
The
Yes.
ship in her birth.
Yes.
at the
Amazing.
dock, right?
Yes. Incredible.
What happens with the woman before she gives birth? Her water breaks.
Breaks. Water breaks.
Right? Like,
Yes.
so this is all part of that. Like, this
Yes.
is these families from way, way back that are all esoteric. This is all
Yes.
esoteric. This has all been like mastered, like going back to Samaria, like,
Pagans.
oh yeah, like just like way back.
Way back.
They've mastered all this stuff.
All
right?
of it.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
That's why, like, you see all these quotes from the Rothschilds, like, yeah, we don't care about your laws, we control the money.
Bingo.
Like,
Bottom line is-
we don't care
Yeah.
about your laws, we control the
Right.
money.
Think.
care.
We don't care. With BlackRock. Yeah, we got the money. Follow the money.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And
Great
I think
point.
you're talking about medicine, and you're talking about why people don't know their rights and what's happened in the school system.
Yes.
Well, if you go back to like the 20s and 30s and stuff, when we were using printing presses,
Right.
those were all bought up and owned and patented by only a couple families.
Right.
And it was these families.
That's correct.
They approved any book that came out off that.
Of course.
So there was a guy in my group who, I don't know where he got these from, but his grandfather or something gave him these books he had before 1930, any book before 1933,
Right.
like with medical, banking, anything like that is fucking gold. Because
Right.
that actually tells you how things really work and really structure. Now it's hard to find anything in
Of
print.
course.
Because they have controlled all that back then. Now with the internet and everything else, it's hard to do, right?
Right, of
That's why they're
course.
trying to reel us all in now, right?
Right, of
People are
course.
waking up and
That's a great way of reeling it in. Yeah, it's true. It's got
Right.
another fish on the hook.
everything's
Yeah.
esoteric.
It
is.
really is. And
Yeah.
to Tony's point earlier in regard to passion and young people and all this, everybody's using, it's the same source. Everybody's walking around with the central scrutinizer, in the immortal words of Frank Zappa, your phone.
Yeah.
You can only go as far as your phone tells you to go. You
Yeah.
can only know as much as the phone tells you to know.
Wow.
But we come from a time that, no, we were there to break the rules, because at that time they were suggesting, break the rules. What
Frank
can you come
Zappa
up
was
with?
way ahead of his time.
Of course.
Yeah,
Of
he was,
course.
like, way ahead of his time.
Especially.
That's why they offed them.
Oh, yeah. When we
What? I don't know that.
well, he died. It was claimed
mysterious-
that he died of prostate cancer and complications at 52 years old.
Yeah,
I really doubt
I
it.
doubt it. I think it was poison.
We really do doubt it. They
What
said
year
the
was
same. So that would have been 1993.
Oh,
And of course, and we could go on and on and on. Based on the corruption that we know is beyond anything that's believable to the human being today.
Oh, I know.
You can go back to Jimi Hendrix and figure out what happened to him. Because that wasn't as they. It isn't funny that these are all suicidal deaths of people,
Oh,
young
yeah.
people that were really, really influential at that time
Yeah.
in changing the minds and breaking the propaganda of the old guys to those young people,
Right.
including the
they had to
Vietnam
control
War.
those messages.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. And it's funny, so many of those performers back then who were part of the hippie movement were sons and daughters of admirals and captains in the
Yeah,
Navy.
so
They're
they-
all CIA. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They were deterrents in a lot of ways to discourage young people.
I think
They're
performers tend to pick up on it quicker because they use a different part of their brain, right?
Right.
So it's like they pick up on things a little easier because it's more based on feel. They see it, they feel it. Now it's like, okay, and then they figure
Right.
it out,
Right.
Where a lot of people have been trained just to be like, well, this is not what I was told. Like, this is why I use the thing. I say this all the time. I'm like, all belief is evil. Because if you believe something, you no longer question,
Right.
Great point.
right?
That's a great point, Chris.
Yeah. So I hate, like, I always tell people, I believe this, I believe this. I said, whoa, don't believe anything. You should be so open to information, because he who questions well learns well.
Yeah.
That's the biggest thing that you can do, is learning how to question.
Right.
Like high impact questioning, question why you believe things. Is it because my parents thought this? Is it because society? Like,
Critical
figure
thinking, in other
right,
words.
Yeah, you got to
Gotcha.
start putting it together, right?
Gotcha.
That's the only way to do it.
Gotcha.
And then, so when people are when they have like nuggets of truth, the media and people that get scared, usually goes back to the central banks anyways. Like,
Right.
yeah,
It's inevitable.
it always ends up going back to central banks somehow, but they'll put those labels on. So you're like, oh, well, he's a racist. I don't listen to him.
Of course.
Oh, okay.
Of
So
course.
he's half an asshole, but he has half intelligence. So you don't want to hear the intelligent part and just ignore the asshole part?
Right.
Are you
Right.
fucking stupid?
Right.
This guy has something value to add. Like, listen,
course.
like you're
course.
that's dumb. That's like saying, like, if you look at a lot of the medical breakthroughs and stuff that they did, it was from one of the sickest parts of our history from World War II. Like,
Right.
But the medical advancements and breakthroughs, a lot of stuff came from that.
Absolutely.
So you're gonna hate this guy for all the bad shit he did, but you're gonna reap all the rewards over here and you're perfectly okay with it
That's
over here
correct.
and not want to learn more about that.
That's correct. And it seems to be, we live in a world of consistent redirection.
Yeah.
And I'll qualify that simply by telling you that at least the medicine that we subscribe to in my own personal family has nothing to do with Western medicine, has nothing to do with Louis Pasteur, has nothing to do with viruses or bacteria. All of that is junk and it's phony and it's a lie.
Yeah.
And the Western medicine, this is the truth. The truth is that in your computer, when your computer suffers from any kind of a virus, the virus does not start in the keyboard. The virus does not start on the screen. It starts in the hard drive. So why in the name of God are you sending me to a gastronomic specialist because I have stomach pain? The pain didn't start in my stomach.
Yeah.
It was a manifestation in my stomach, but it started in my brain. Yeah. Something caused me conflict, caused me that anger, and it settled in my stomach. So I'm just going to say that this is another show.
But I love it. That's all Chinese medicine based on Chinese causality.
Some of it is that the Ayurvedic medicine with a lot of the Indian people and so on and so forth. But then there's German new medicine. Yeah. Dr. Hamer, who was threatened his whole life for the brilliance that he is. And that's what we subscribe to. Yeah. And so what's happening now is our lives have changed. Yeah. Because when we follow that, there is no medicine. Mm-hmm. Once you recognize what the conflict shock was in your brain, because it's very momentary, then it manifests gallbladder, stomach, the mesoderm level, the ectoderm level, the endoderm level, which is at a bone level. Yeah. If you notice, most athletes, and sorry, this is not digression. I'm kind of like wrap it like what it is athletes suffer knee problems. A hockey player will have bone problems, his structural problems. At the end of the season, when the year before he scored 50 goals, that year he scored 10. That's called self-devaluation. So in his mind, I'm no good anymore. I can't play hockey. Oh, I got to have knee surgery. Wait a minute. What kind of a year did you have? Mm-hmm. Let's talk about what kind of a year you had. Let's talk through that for 2 or 3 days.
Stuff.
You can manifest the brain. Absolutely. The brain is so powerful, and I think all of the things that you brought up, Chris, in your brilliance.
That's what they're trying to hide.
Correct. Yeah. They know
that's
all this
stuff. That's the whole thing they're trying to hide.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
That's what you know that already because Tony was asking, what do we do with all this now? Yeah. Well, my question to you is, how do you have all this knowledge and information on an intellectual level, which leads you to an emotional strength inside on a human level? It's best to know than not to know. That oblivious stuff, be ignorant and go through life. Now it's going to catch up with you somewhere. Yep. Yeah. Somebody's going to hurt because of your ignorance. It could be a child, could be a sibling. It's better to know and help and be of service because I think your strength is of service to others, like Tony, what he does. That's of service to others. Yeah. That's the cumulative strength that humanity can, and the few of us, the visionaries, have to carry. Yeah. They have to Clydesdale the rest of the world because the rest of the world just doesn't have the courage to do that kind of fulfillment.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think there's a big power struggle right now because I think there is a lot of people in the world that are very influential that feel kind of the way we do. Right. And then there's other families that are like, we got too many people here. We got to maintain the old realm. And they're working at a different paradigm, like I think there's a battle there happening. Right. People call it good and evil or whatever you want to call it.
Fine. That's good.
Yeah.
So in kind of closing this session off, Chris, we should kind of meet
Yeah.
couple times,
Yeah,
because
like-
I think,
Every day with Chris.
yeah, no, I think it's good. We can have regular meetings and talk about very specific subject matter, because I think our audience would be really interested in sort of discussing sort of the medicine issue and,
So much.
or all these other issues, and I think sort of in closing, what would you, closing off this podcast for this session, like, what's your message? Like, give me your sort of closing message and
I
to
would-
build upon for a future podcast and stuff.
Well, you know what? I'm going to give some advice to anyone that's watching. You have 80,000 seconds a day? Is that what it works out to be? About 80,000 seconds a day?
About that.
If you can't take 3 minutes to look up like 1 or 2 definitions a day and do that over 3 years, you can't take 3 minutes.
So explain that. Look up a definition. What does
Legalese.
that mean? Legalese. Okay.
Because that's what's used against you. You got to look up those meanings. Don't just sign your name away anymore. You got to look up the words that are being used against you. Right?
So give me 2 examples in any context. Doesn't matter.
Person and you.
Okay. Look up the meaning of person and look up the
You'll
definition
find
of
10
you.
different meanings depending on what act you look at.
Right.
But person's like a whole other thing,
So, yeah. So if there are multiple meanings, which one do you apply to that?
Well, I'll give you an example. Anyone that's ever been arrested by a police officer, as soon as they arrest you in person.
In person. Right.
What am I in? In what? What are you trying to tell me? What
So find out the
function
definition
does the
of
word in mean?
Right. So
Right.
learn about that, for example.
Right.
Yeah, I got it.
So if you're in if they're even telling you right to your face, you're in something, like, don't you want to know a little bit more about what the fuck are they talking
Yes,
about?
of course.
Yeah.
Of
Look
course.
it up.
Okay, good. So your advice is look up 2 legal definitions every day. Take a few minutes and just.
And there's one other thing too.
Go ahead.
There's a guy by the name of Mark Passio on YouTube.
Right.
He has a video, unless it's been taken down, on natural law. That's incredibly powerful.
Right. Is that like who is that other character? There's another gentleman. Is it Christopher George or something?
There's a whole bunch.
There's a group of them that. But Passio is the last name.
Mark Passio.
Really
Mark
good, right?
Passio.
Mark
Okay,
Passio.
so you guys watching,
YouTuber, right?
Yeah, just check out
Yeah.
Mark Passio. Why not, right? I mean,
Yeah.
if you care,
Absolutely.
if you care about what we've been talking about here, I know it's kind of
Well, he ties it all in.
yeah, but here's
That's
the thing.
beautiful.
I don't consider myself a very smart person. So and this stuff kind of goes, a lot of it goes like this, right? Over my head, and I try to bring it down to sort of an understandable level for me, But I think it's very important to start informing yourself, no matter how old you are, as long as you have access to information, start checking this stuff out. I think it's important.
Agreed.
And so, and I want to thank Chris for being here. He canceled on me several times, but I think going forward, we're going to have multiple discussions about this because, hey, listen, if it reaches 50 people, 500 people, 5,000 people, reaching one, we made a difference. Or at least,
Absolutely.
you know what I mean? It doesn't really matter. We just do it because, we want to put out information there, let people know that.
You just want to question stuff.
You want to, yeah,
You
exactly.
just have to question. You don't have to believe anything.
And
You
that's
just
the
have to
beautiful
question stuff.
Right. It's a beautiful thing about the Bring Your Guard Down podcast, right? One week we can be talking about, comedy stuff or flies in a bushel or whatever, and
Yeah, right.
and the next week we would talk about really serious stuff that matters. It's important, so kind of give you the
Maritime
scope.
law.
Yeah, really cool. That's a cool bit, and I'm going to make a clip of that because I think that's really cool. I didn't even, you know what I mean, to think about Doc, to think
Because
about
it's so in your
birth.
face.
Yeah,
They don't hide any of this
and
stuff.
I like to
This
know.
is what I mean.
I like, for me, I'm going to learn like what does that actually mean in the context of life,
Right.
I get it. So anyway, I want to thank everyone for listening, and remember, if you like what you hear and you want to learn more, and we're going to be, I don't want to say we're going to be the variety show of podcasts. We're going to have all kinds of stuff going on. We're not going to be known just for one sort of topic or cover one sort of thing, right? So subscribe on your channel, help us out and continue to support this effort. We'll continue to bring you this information, and we'll have fun doing it. All right. So I want to thank Chris, Vito. Thanks for coming. And
thanks, Chris. You rule. You really do. Thanks for all of that.
Yeah, great
really
information. And
great.
we'll see you again next time. Thanks for listening.
See ya.
Ciao.